Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the League of Europe Formula One YouTube channel for round 13 of the Division 3 season. My name is Aidan Carter, otherwise known as Commentalist. I'll be taking you through Division 3 proceedings as always, and joining me in the commentary box once again after a week's break is IRO Dylan. Dylan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing great. How are you, Aidan?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Looking forward to the 13th round of the season. Obviously, Singapore we come to from you for you guys tonight. There we go. Get my words out. Had a week off, so bear with me. I might struggle to get my words out for the start of the stream. But yeah, come back to Singapore, and obviously the week's break. So we've had a little bit of time off after the last round, and it's fair to say that the last round of the championship really could have had a massive swing in the result at the end of the season, couldn't have it?
It was a really crucial race for the top two in the championship battle because, of course, Jorno ended up winning the race and Jaco ended up only getting 5 points in that race, and that has cemented Jorno's lead by at least 24 points now going into Singapore. So, yeah, it's a really crucial race, Monza, and I'm excited to see how Jaco's going to bounce back this race.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what he can do. Everyone getting ready for the start of qualifying then. Just to run through the rest of the top 10 then in the championship at the moment. So Jorno on 171, 24 ahead of Jaco, who's on 137 points. Caesar now up to third. He's on 109 points after his sixth time. He's finished second in a race this season. Out of, I think, 7 point scoring finishes, he's finished second on 6 of those occasions. Old School has dropped to fourth in the standings and is now only 2 points ahead of TDB in their battle for fourth. B Morgan runs in sixth ahead of the two Ferraris of Eduk and YY 7th and 8th. Bree in ninth, and Total Peas rounds off the top 10. So not only the battle for the championship lead, but the battle from, well, really fourth down all the way to, I'd say, probably Harry Nawag in 12th place. A really, really close battle.
It's really close. Only 50 points separating P4 and P12, which is extremely close. And of course, as we've seen this so far this season, anyone can challenge for a podium and anyone can win in D3. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the final 5 races of the season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, like you say, to try and see who's going to come out on top of that one. You had to say at the moment, at least in that battle, the momentum really has gone with TDB and B Morgan. B Morgan off the back of 2 fourth place finishes in a row and 2 out of 3 podiums for TDB in the last 3 races. Well, we'll make that 3 out of 4 with his first win, obviously, in Britain. So those two really have the momentum, it seems, at the moment. As well, maybe for Bree, who's really been on the up in the second half of, well, since probably, I'd say, Canada. You got obviously his first podium in Canada, and since then, Bree's performances have really improved, haven't they?
They really have, and he's one of those drivers that you don't see quite often during the races, but you always, at the end of the race, you always see him there in P5 or P6 or P7 getting good finishing, getting good points, and yeah, it's just a great drive always. He's really consistent, and I think he only DNF'd in Australia. That's the only time he's DNF'd this season. For the rest of the season, he's been quite consistent in securing some points.
Yeah, he scored a point in almost every round he's taken part in. Like I say, DNF'd in Australia, did not start in the Netherlands, and didn't score a point in Austria. But other than that, Bree has been in the points in every single round this season. The only other driver really to be in the points in every round so far this season, that they've taken part in at least, has been Jaco, which goes to show how topsy-turvy really this season has been, hasn't it? It's been a little bit all over the place, and somehow, despite a lull in performances really in the midway part of the season, Jorno has come out on top with some really stellar performances so far.
He really has, and I think in the last 5 races, he's not finished lower than 4th, which is an incredible feat, and he's really on form. And especially around Singapore, where it's going to be a very you have to focus 24/7 or 100% of the lap in order not to crash. So this is going to be a very crucial race, and yeah, with 4 good finishing positions out of 4 races, getting a 5th one is really crucial now, especially if he looks to extend his lead over Jaco.
Yeah, the leader in the championship at the moment, nearly a race wins advantage, so he has that in his back pocket in case anything does go wrong, but he obviously would like to extend that championship lead even further at the end of this round. We're going to ride with Harry Nawag though. He's going to be the first person to set a lap time in qualifying around Singapore. Another thing to look out for at Singapore is the tyre strategy. Obviously, longest race on the calendar in terms of time, 31 laps, around a lap time that's about a minute 40, I would say. Well, a little bit lower than that in race pace, but here comes Harry Nawag then through turns 22 and 23. the most corners of any track on the calendar that's runnable within them for the first qualifying lap around Singapore, into turns 1, 2 and 3, coming very quick succession through here. The 90 left-hand corner, through a kink of 2, and then into the slow hairpin of turn 3. Don't lose the traction on the exit of the corner, through the kink of 4 coming up here, and then into 5. Don't take too much curb on the inside. Harry Noir decides to stick well away from the curb, but that causes him a little bit of wobble then coming down this straight, through the kink of turn 6, and then into the first real overtaking opportunity on the track, turn 7. Turns into the corner. It's a 90 left. You can run wide here, and Harry Noir does, and invalidates his time because of it. So we're going to ride on board then with the person behind him on the track, which I believe is B. Morgan in the Haas. He's now coming up Raffles Boulevard and up towards turn 7 on a lap. 26.3 for the first sector. Not the best we'll see, but still a good banker through 7. Much needed there for B. Morgan. Now into turn 8. Again, a very, very tight hairpin. Don't lose the wheel, lose the traction on the exit of the corner. The walls are very, very close. Through turn 9, longer corner than you would expect. And now what was the Singapore Sling is turn 10, just a simple left-hand corner through the long part of turn 10 and then into turn 11 and through the kink of 12 onto the Anderson Bridge, through another kink here in turn 13. Don't hit the wall on the inside, through the hairpin of 14, and now down the back straight, another DRS zone. There are 3 DRS zones around Singapore, but amazingly you still really don't get that many opportunities to overtake. And now into the next corner, probably the next best overtaking opportunity on the track, coming out and now into the final sector, probably the tightest, most technical part of the lap. A lot of left right 90-degree corners here, and now coming up to the corner underneath the grandstand. Make sure you don't brake too late here. It's so easy to hit that wall on the outside. Keeps it nice and tight, ready for a good run through the next corner, and now coming into the one of the penultimate corners on the track. Backs off a little bit midway through the chicane, has a massive wobble on the exit. That's very easy to do, and now through 22 and 23 to finish off the lap. B. Morgan crosses the line, a 35 flat. That is the first lap time we've got in the session so far, and it's fair to say that that lap time probably could be solidly beaten here today.
Yeah, especially I expect to see a couple of 33s at least around here in Singapore, and I think that lap from B. Morgan was just to set a lap time. He might actually go on to the mediums later on in the session if he believes that's the better race tire.
Yeah, both of the Williams drivers are on the mediums at the moment. Luke has just gone into 4th with a 36.2. His teammate TDB did a 35.3 on the medium tyres, but they've already gone for those very early in the session, probably at where the track has had its lowest amount of grip. And Harry Noir on his second lap has spun coming out of turn 9, so he's out of the session. He won't be able to improve. He's down in 17th at the moment with Jacob behind him, so he will be last on the grid for this one. I believe Peter crossed the line as well, but he invalidated his time, and it was a 34.7. So let's wait and see what he can do as the session goes on. Old School now crosses the line on 35.5 on the mediums. YHYY goes second on a 35.2 on the soft compound tyres. We've got one of the racing points to the line. That's Chill, and a 34.1 from Chill. It's nearly into the 33s. 9/10 clear of the rest of the field already.
That is a really good lap, but it might actually be, I think that's a good lap, but a lot of drivers, I've seen Toto Peace as well, slowing down before the line, before finishing his lap. I think he wants to go on to the mediums as well. I think this is going to be, everyone wants to go on the mediums, but they don't know if it's faster or not.
Yorno, meanwhile, is running through the final sector with no front wing at all, so he's obviously had some sort of drama on this lap and is diving into the pit lane as you would expect. But Yorno, his quality session not got off to the best of starts. We've seen this so many times this season where Yorno isn't really able to get a banker lap in. He really has to wait until his final run to get a good time in qualifying, and once again it seems like he's fallen foul of that here today. Peter coming into the pit lane, he invalidated for a second time on his second run, so he's into the pits not wanting to qualify on those tyres. I think everyone's now really come to the end of their first runs in qualifying. Pelly's invalidated as well on his second run on the same set of tyres, so he won't be setting a lap time as of yet. We're still waiting for the likes of Stumpy, Caesar, Miami and J. Cole all to leave the pit lane, so obviously a lot of people not wanting to commit to the soft compound tyres.
Yeah, and they have their own right, of course. That I personally believe the soft tyres are quite terrible for during the race, and the mediums are a lot better as race tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see what actually is going to happen, because a lot of the drivers in the pits might actually go onto the mediums at the end of qualifying in order to set their lap time on the mediums and hopefully get into the top 10. But yeah, this is quite surprising to see not a lot of people finishing the laps on the soft tyres.
No, and at the moment, this is the first time I think I've ever had this in a league race that I've commentated on. No one is on track at the moment. The only one but on track now is Bree coming into the pit lane at the end of his first one on the soft tyres, and apart from that, it's like real life Formula 1. no one is out on the track. Everyone is in the pit lane. I think one of the Alpha Tauris actually is just leaving the pit lane right now, and I think that might be Caesar by the looks of things coming back out onto the track. We'll wait and see. Actually, no, it might be Peter coming out on another set of soft compound tyres. It is. So Peter's come out onto another set of softs. He's currently down in 15th with no time, but just like real life Formula 1, no one wants to go out on track.
Yeah, I think this is just people preparing to go onto the mediums. But yeah, it's also quite easy to invalidate a lap here. So I think, yeah, it's just a mix of things right now for everyone.
Really is, yeah, and this is definitely, in terms of alternate strategies we've had on the calendar, obviously there are other tracks where starting on the mediums is preferable. Obviously places like Spain and China come to mind. Obviously we didn't race at China this season, but that is one of those tracks where you would like to start on the medium tyres. Same with a track somewhere like France as well. But Singapore really is the king of alternate strategies, isn't it? This is the track where starting on the soft compound tyres really is kind of a death sentence for your race.
It really is, because the soft tyres easily overheat around here. And the mediums might have a little chance for overheating as well. So it's just the tires aren't usually that bad. It's just you overheat them, you can't keep them in check, and that's why you're losing a lot of time to most of the medium runners behind during the race. And yeah, there's fresh tires here as well. They're so good. Because I believe 1% on the soft tires is at least half a tenth. So if you push on your outlap and you gain 3%, for example, you're already like a tenth and a half away from the best, like your theoretical best, what you can do on those tires.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like Peter's outlap has actually been particularly fast, so we'll ride with him on his lap. He did a 34.7 on his first one before it got invalidated, so he would be currently on the front row, and Peter seems to be a good qualifier at the moment. He started obviously the season a little bit late on. I think he started in Hungary if I remember correctly, but ever since then he's had good qualifying pace. He's been on pole twice in the last 4 rounds, but other than that it's just not really come together for him in the race. I think his best race finish so far has been his 6th place finish. I think that might have come in Belgium in the wet conditions. He was on pole for that race, but kind of plummeted through the field. That's kind of been his season so far. Good qualifying, but just not got the race pace to back it up. Let's see if he has that tonight. He's obviously he's pushing a lot on these soft tyres. The only person at the moment that has committed to a lap on the soft compound tyres seems to be Chill. He's the only one that wouldn't really be able to improve on a set of mediums unless he has got some incredible pace in that racing point. Now through turn 10 once again, then goes Peter. Let's see what he can do as he now comes onto the Anderson Bridge. Is he going to be up there at the front of the field? We would say so based on what he's done so far this season. He is very committed on this lap. Nice and tight through the hairpin. Runs out as close to the wall as you can dare coming down the bridge. And now into turn 14. Again, another braking zone. Little bit late on the brakes there, but gets away with it. Don't want to run too wide because that's very easy to invalidate on the exit of turn 14. Now through 15 and 16. Again, easy to invalidate on the inside of both of these corners. Through 17 and now into 18 and 19. Don't hit the wall on the inside or the outside. Nice and neat again. Peter, very controlled lap. This is not, you can tell, he's not really at the edge of his limits, but he's still keeping it nice and neat and tidy. Very easy to lose traction there, but he keeps it out of the wall. Derates before the final 2 corners. Throws it into the final corners. He's very committed. Crosses the line, and it's a 34.2 for Peter. So he goes onto the front row, and it seems like he is wanting to start on the soft tyres.
And that is crucial for him to get a lap in early in the session, and yeah, that's a decent banker for him at least, to be honest, and no mistakes during that lap. Probably, as you said, not pushing the limits of the car, but he got his lap in, and that's crucial. He's now in P2.
Yeah, as Jacob meanwhile is on a lap on the soft tyres, but he's invalidated, unfortunately. He crossed the line and did a 34.1, so that would have put him just behind his teammate and just ahead of Peter on the grid. So good lap from him, but you can tell that maybe he purposely invalidated that time. B. Morgan, meanwhile, he's committed on his second lap on the soft compound tyres, improves by 9/10 of a second. So that first lap was definitely just an easy banker for him. He jumps now onto provisional pole position with a 34.1, goes ahead of Chill. Edok now goes fourth on a 34.2, so more and more people now committing to the soft compound tyres. YHYY in 5th is now on the medium tyres, but his best lap was set on the softs. So let's see if he can actually improve on that soft tyre run on the mediums. At the moment, it doesn't look like that is the case. He's already crossed the line and hasn't improved, I don't think, by the looks of things. We'll have to wait and see at the end of the session. Luke improved on his medium tyre on his medium tyre run on a set of softs. TDB's now on a set of softs as well. So all of a sudden, from loads of people wanting to stay out on the medium tyres, as TDB does a 33.9, first person into the 33s, and Yorno now goes second on a 34.1. It's all happening now. But Yorno 1,000th of a second faster than B Morgan once again, qualifying in D3 really close. But we went from everyone waiting on the medium tyres to everyone going on the softs. But as I say that, look at Pease's time. A 34-1 on the medium. That's incredible.
That's an incredible lap time, and he's put himself in a great position for the race, because the medium tyres are a better race tyre, and now with basically everyone behind him on softs and everyone in front of him on soft, he's sitting in the brilliant position so far.
The next person behind him on the track on a set of medium tyres that has actually set a lap on the mediums is Old School in 11th. That is a big gap, and Old School obviously would not start on those tyres because he's not inside the top 10. Caesar's only a 12. JSD obviously made a mistake on his lap or maybe backed off. Stumpy hasn't set a lap yet, Pelly hasn't set a lap, Miami hasn't set a lap, and neither has J. Cole. So still a few people yet to go, but a 34-1 on the medium compound tyres from Pease is an incredible time. And just to think, he might have made a slight error in that lap that maybe cost him 800ths of a second. 800ths of a second difference between him being 5th and being on the front row.
That is just incredible, and that is a really, really strong lap time from Total Pease. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. This man is on fire right now on those medium tyres.
He really is. He's had so much pace so far this season. The races haven't necessarily gone his way. Every time he's finished a race this season, he's been on the podium. He's had a race win and 2 third-place finishes. Other than that, he's not finished a race. So it's been a bit of an up-and-down season for Pete. He's currently 10th in the championship. You have to say, if he was more consistent and was able to finish races, he'd be an easy championship contender because he's had the pace all season long. And especially at Belgium as well. Belgium was probably one of the more dominant race performances I've seen in League of Europe. That race in the wet at Spa, he utterly dominated from start to finish. And at the moment in a very, very good position. One of the Alfa Romeos has just crossed the line. That's Stumpy getting ready to start his first lap on the soft tyres. So let's see what he can do. He's been taking part in TTML recently alongside Old School. And him and Old School in qualifying recently have been virtually inseparable. So let's see if that is the same in League of Europe as he now comes through the first sector. Look for a low 26, maybe a high 25 for the first sector to be right at the front of the field. Here comes Stumpy then up to the line. What is this time going to be? It is a 26.2, so it's a half decent first sector. Not the fastest we've seen and not the fastest we'll ever see really around this track, but it would put him towards the top 5, I would say, if he can continue on his run. It's neat and tidy so far, keeping it well away from the walls, not using all of the road. You can tell that Stumpy, this is his first proper lap in the session because he's not really pushing the limits, as you would say, and there's only 3 minutes left in the session at this point in time, so he's not really going to be able to set another lap. This is it for him, and he's committed to the soft tyres. Now comes past the Anderson Bridge, through the hairpin, and now onto the back straight. Again, looking nice and neat and tidy. We've only got 3 other drivers out on track at the moment, so once again, everyone waiting for their final runs. Here comes Stumpy then into the final sector. Looking good so far. Let's see if this can put him maybe around the likes of Eduk and Bree in the bottom end of the top 10. Now comes through to the grandstand corner. Turn 18 here underneath the grandstand again. Nice and neat and tidy, not using all the limits of the road, but there you go. Cut curb on the inside of turn 19, and that's his lap time invalidated, and Stumpy will not be able to set another time in qualifying. There's not enough time left unless he goes for another lap on the same set of tyres, which is a big mistake on the softs, and a 34.7 would have put him in 9th place on the grid, so that would have put him inside the top 10, but an invalidation in qualifying, and Stumpy is not going to improve from 14th.
That is very disappointing. It's so easy to just get a wheel over the curb there and invalidate, and that is very, very disappointing for him. And a lot of people are now going out on track to set their to go down their final runs, and this is a crucial time for quality.
Miami, meanwhile, jumps up into 9th place on the medium tyres, so he's the next person inside the top 10 on those tyres. Him and Pease, the only ones at the moment. Pease has gone back out on the same set of medium tyres, so he's looking to get even further up the field, and who knows, he may be able to pull that one off. J. Cole has started a lap, and he's still not set a time in this session. 2nd in the championship, and look at the traffic he has got in front of him on this lap. Going out a couple minutes earlier cost him here, as he now goes through the first sector. A 26 flat for the first sector is a very good time, but he might get held up a little bit here. There's a little bit of dirty air from his teammate directly in front of him on the road. His teammate gets out of the way, but now through turns 9, there's even more traffic up the road over the Anderson Bridge. There's about 6 cars within about 5 seconds of each other. He's now got one of the Williams drivers in front of him on track as he comes to the Anderson Bridge, and there's not really a lot of room here, but the Williams does a very good job of moving out of the way. J. Cole then in the middle sector. This is only lap in qualifying, committing to the soft tyres, as has his championship rival, currently second on the grid, doing a very good job once again. Is Yorno. Can J. Cole get up there? A 2.1 by the end of the second sector. It's a very good lap time. This is looking like a low 34, maybe a high 33 if he can pull this last sector off. But look at the traffic once again. His championship rival, I believe, is the car directly in front of him on the road, and Yorno moves out of the way nicely, but now he's got both Ferraris and both Haas cars in front of him on the track, I believe. As you know, sorry, it's an Alfa Romeo on track. They're all going to have to space themselves out because J. Cole is coming, and they're all going to be far too close to each other on track, and that is one of the Ferraris going to hold him up maybe a little bit into the final corner. Not quite, but J. Cole comes around the final corner to cross the line, and it's a 33.6 in the end. All of that traffic on the road, and somehow J. Cole got away with it, and is 3/10 clear at the front of the field. A brilliant lap from J. Cole.
That's a brilliant lap after not setting a lap time in qualifying, and then just come out in the depth of qualifying and just set a provisional pole time. That is incredible, and he's 2 and almost 3/10 clear of TDB behind.
Brilliant lap time. The next person to cross the line is going to be one of the Williams drivers. I think it is Luke, but Luke's invalidated, unfortunately. So he's not going to be setting a time in this session. Miami's just about held on to his place inside the top 10 on those mediums for the time being. Stumpy obviously is out of the session already. He's not set a time. So we'll now look to the next Alpha Tauri driver on the track, I believe, to set a time. And that will be Caesar. He's committed to the soft compound tyres to 2.6 by the end of the second sector. Not quite as fast as J. Cole, but this could put him right in that thick of that battle for third on the grid. Let's see what his final sector is like, really close to the wall through turns 21 and now into turn 22 and 23. Very committed. Where does he cross the line? It's only a 34.7 in the end for Caesar. Only puts him 10th on the grid and behind Breeze, so not as confident around this track Caesar seems, as another person crosses the line. I think that might have been Pease. No, it wasn't Pease, sorry, that was JSD crossing the line. Doesn't improve on 15th on the grid. We've now got one of the Renaults coming up to the line. That will be Bree coming around the final corner. Is he going to improve on 9th on the grid? Here he comes to the line, and the time is an improvement, but it doesn't gain him a spot on the grid. One of the Haas cars across the line, that's B. Morgan. He's not able to improve. Now here comes Eduk around the final corner. What's his time going to be? A 33.6. He goes pole position. What an improvement from Eduk from nowhere in qualifying, and that's immediately beaten by Yorno with a 33.5 at the end of the session. These guys are finding a lot of time at the end of the session. Peter's the next one to cross the line in the AlphaTauri. Where can he put his car? He goes 4th, so a good improvement for him as well. Everyone finding at least nearly half a second. Pease finds time on his mediums only just under a 10th though, so it doesn't gain him that many places. He's only 6th. He's 6th on the grid though on the medium tyres. That's a brilliant result. Only TDB left, and he's invalidated. So from the front row of the grid, provisional pole position early on, TDB drops down to 5th place. I thought J. Cole had that in the bag, but Yorno and Eduk came from nowhere and are on the front row.
That was incredibly close between those three drivers, and yeah, wow, that is just incredible to see how close it is on for the field to be. And total Pease on those medium tires, the only one who's going to be starting on the medium tires inside the top 10, puts himself into P6, which is or P6, I think it was P6, right? Yeah, it was. Yeah. So that's a brilliant place for Total Pease to start the race.
It's really good for his race, but I would like to have seen what he could have done on the softs. I mean, he's only 6/10 off pole on a set of medium tyres. He could be well out in front, maybe nearly into the 32s on a set of soft tyres. That is a brilliant lap time from Pease. But here's the full grid for you then. Championship leader Yorno takes pole position ahead of Eduk. J. Cole thought he had pole position, lost it in the dying depths. He's down to 3rd on the grid, but still a good result from him. Peter in 4th, once again a good qualifying for him. Then it's TDB, Pease, B. Morgan, Chill, Breeze, Caesar rounds off the top 10. Miami is 11th ahead of Old School 12th. White YY, Luke, JSD, Stumpy, Pelly, and Harry Nawag are your qualifiers. 3 drivers in the end not able to set a time, and that just goes to show how difficult this track is to master.
It really is difficult, and even if you make a single mistake, it will probably cost you over 2/10s, and it's just so crucial to get a good lap in and stay neat and tidy, and that's what Yorno, Eduk, and J. Cole did, and they're our top 3 for this race. So this is going to be very interesting to see, especially with strategy. What can Total Pease do on those medium tires to challenge maybe the top 5 and have that better race pace and win this race?
Let's see how quickly the transition is between the softs and the medium tyre being the fastest. Obviously, you would expect the soft tyres to have a little bit of an advantage, maybe over the opening couple laps, but because of how many corners there are at this track and how long this track is in terms of time, the tyres overheat almost instantly, it feels like the soft tyres do especially. So Pease should try and take advantage really of those medium tyres being in a better working range pretty early on. And you would expect maybe the soft runners inside the top 10 to pit probably around from lap 5 onwards.
Yeah, I expect that definitely to happen because, yeah, those soft tires, they don't last, and the longer that you stay on them, the more you're going to suffer with overheating and with wear. So, yeah, I expect to see the soft runners probably pit from lap 4 onwards, I think. I think lap 4 is a viable strategy because people can try and go for the undercut on people. We're going to try and pit lap 5.
Yeah, it's a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation for the soft runners, because obviously if you pit lap 4 or 5, then you're going to have to do 25, 26 laps on the hard tyres, which, while they are a very consistent and good tyre to be on, that is still a tall order, and you would expect the hard tyres to go off maybe in the last 5 or 6 laps of the race. And obviously the medium runners can go a lot further, maybe lap 10 or 11 in this race, and put the hard tyres on and be absolutely fine to the end. But then again, like you say, if the soft runners stay out to maybe lap 7 or 8, the amount of time they're going to lose, they're going to get undercut by all the other soft runners that came into the pit lane. They will lose track position, and Singapore, while obviously the tyre advantage you'll have is massive, even so, it's incredibly difficult to overtake here. Yeah,
it really is, and I think everyone inside the top 10 except Total Pease just went for, okay, track position is what matters around here, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to overtake me, so I'll just suffer with these soft tyres for now and stick the hard tyres on and be consistent on them. And I think the strategy for Total Pease is to get rid of these soft runners as quick as possible, and probably with those fresh hard tyres he'll be likely to make a charge at the end of the race.
I just saw a message in the Discord actually from Edux saying that he improved on his personal best in practice by half a second in that final qualifying session. So Edux found pace from nowhere, it seems, half a second up, and that would have put him, if he hadn't have found that half a second, he would have been at the bottom end of the top 10. So that was very crucial for his race. Also looking at the people outside the top 10 on their tyre strategy. So Miami in 11th on the mediums, not a surprise. Old School on the hard compound tyres, and that's something really interesting for the start of this race as well. Was actually you would expect in a normal race, Old School to maybe drop behind at least Whitewire and Luke, but the hard tyres here hold up really well and have some really decent pace, don't they?
They are a really good race tyre, and I think the first 5 laps you might struggle on them compared to the mediums and soft runners, but after which I think they're quite equal to the medium ones, and probably even faster. So the hard tyres starting on them is really good, and I expect to see the hard runners to go to at least lap 18 and then probably go on to the medium tyres to end the race. So this is going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out, and yeah, I mean, I can't wait for the race to start.
Here we go then, everyone lining up at the back of the field. Look out for Harry Nouag on the first lap as well, trying to pull off an Antonio Giovinazzi, last on the grid on the soft tyres, so he's going to be trying to make a lot of places early on. But here we go then for the start of the Singapore round of LOE, longest race on the calendar. This is going to be something to behold. Who's going to get off the line the best? Really long hold, but the lights are out and away they go, and it looks a fairly even start at the front of the field. How's the second phase of the start? It looks like Jorno's blast away. Look at Peter splitting the gap between Eduk and J. Cole at the first corner. He runs off the road though through turn 2 and passes Eduk off the track, so he might have to let the Ferrari man back through. J. Cole once again swamped a little bit at the start and is now under pressure from Pease, who's already upper place on those medium tyres. A brilliant start for the Mercedes man, and he's all over the back of J. Cole. He nearly touches the back of J. Cole through turn 5. Brilliant camera angle, and you can see TDB lurking in the background as well, trying to make up for that lost time off the start. They're nearly 3 wide into turn 7 as Pease has a look down the inside of J. Cole, but there's not quite enough room. But already on a flyer, B. Morgan has a look at the back of TDB in the background as well. Bree and Luke are running side by side. Old School's dropped down. There's a lot of front wing damage, and there's a virtual safety car. I think that might have been Bree that's picked up some damage, along with, I didn't quite see who the other driver was that's picked up that damage. It might be YHYY, yes it is, and Miami as well. So Miami, the lead person outside the top 10 starting on the medium tyres, picks up damage. So does YHYY, and so does Bree, and all 3 of their races massively compromised from here on out.
And that is very disappointing, especially on those medium tyres. You want to go longer into the race to have that advantage over the soft runners, but now they likely have to pit, and I think Caesar has wing damage as well on soft tyres, and the virtual safety car has just ended. But that's a great start from Peter, going from 4th to 2nd to start the race, and yeah, Caesar does have a lot of wing damage, so he'll likely pit this lap and get a new front wing and probably go onto the hard tires and
Breeze spun the car coming out of turn 14 and has retired at the end of lap 1. We were singing his praises for being incredibly consistent and finishing all of these races, and I think we've cursed him. He's not able to make it through lap 1. What a shame for him. And look at Miami, so much front wing damage on that Red Bull. It looks like someone maybe lost the car in the middle sector, and it's just a chain reaction from there on out. Luke down the inside of Miami into the penultimate corner, and Miami was trying to duck into the pit lane, so we've got a lot of people into the pits at the end of lap 1. There is a little bit of timing glitch. That will sort itself out, hopefully, by the end of the first sector. But it's Yorno that leads from Peter. And the top two already seeming to pull out a gap because Eduk at the moment can't quite keep pace. And Eduk, there you can see, running wide, nearly whacking the wall coming out of turn 5. Yorno and Peter have got good pace. Eduk's qualifying pace maybe flattering his race pace a little bit. It's not quite able to keep with the top two.
Yeah, it might be really struggling for tyre temps around here on the soft tyres. And you can see it happening. He's already sliding a little bit over across the track, and he is sticking to the back of Peter ever so slightly, but he's outside of the 1 second range right now on lap 2, so he won't get the DRS for lap 3 if this keeps going on.
I will say a silver lining maybe for the soft runners here is that because so many people came into the pit lane at the end of lap 1 for wing damage, that they're not really going to be in as much traffic as they would have been had that not been the case. Had Caesar, Whitewire, Miami, Harry Nowak and Pelly all into the pits, and Stumpy is another one that's retired, and we have a full safety car at the end of lap 2. Now, this is interesting. Do the soft runners come into the pit lane and put the hard tyres on, or do they try and use this as a way to extend their stint and go onto the hard tyres maybe in maybe 5 laps time? What would you do?
Probably this is the best time to pit. You'll get a free pit stop, and of course you'll be on very old hard tyres come the end of the race, but at least you have a little bit of track position. I think the best strategy right now is to pit from these soft tyres onto the hards.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but this is exactly really what caught out a lot of drivers last time out in Monza. If you remember, obviously, we had a virtual safety car as Yorno nearly misses the pit lane entry. He was so committed to coming into the pit lane. But we had, obviously, that virtual safety car quite early on. I think it was lap 4 or 5 we had a virtual safety car in Monza. And pretty much everybody came into the pit lane to change onto the hard compound tyres, onto the medium compound tyres for that race, apart from Yorno. Yorno was the only one that stayed out at that virtual safety car, and Yorno's been massively held up in the pits here, by the way. He's dropped behind Eduk and Peter and TDB, I think. He's dropped 3 places in the pit lane already. So Yorno, being in the middle of the pit lane as the McLaren driver, has lost out hugely, and all of a sudden, Peter, for 4th on the grid, of all the people that's pitted, is now your net race leader.
That is very interesting, and another interesting thing to note is Yorno went on the medium tyres, so he's committing to a 2-stop strategy for this race. He doesn't think the hards can last this long or this early till the end, and that is very interesting to see because he will be flying on those medium tyres compared to the hard tyres. But I think the medium tyres, they last about 12 laps maximum, and I think at the end of the stint they're worse than the hard tyres, so this is going to be very interesting to see, and this of course has helped Luke and Toto Peace a little bit. I think I'm not quite sure if this is good for everyone on the alternate strategy, to be honest.
It's going to be really, really difficult for Pease and Luke now to try and make up that deficit, but obviously Pease, Luke and Yorno at this point as well, probably all thinking that from this point onwards it's going to be incredibly difficult. Remember, all these guys that have pitted have got to make these hard compound tyres last 29 laps. Now at the other tracks, that at the best of times, that is incredibly difficult. Around Singapore, that is going to be a mammoth task to take those tyres 29 laps. If you're kind on your tyres and you're not really running in a lot of dirty air, then maybe you'll be able to do it. But with Peter and Eduk at the front of the field and TDB there as well, and with Yorno pushing them from behind, you'd imagine these guys will be pushing all out. So it's going to be difficult to take those hards to the end of the race with any sort of pace left in them. And we saw in Monza that J. Cole tried the strategy of taking the tyres to the end of the race, and he got a puncture with 3 laps to go, and it cost him the race victory, and it gave his championship rival the race victories. I mean, Yorno was right in Monza when we thought he was wrong. He could be right again.
It is a very interesting strategy call from Yorno, and this is going to be very exciting. And I think just on those hard tyres, Singapore's a more difficult track to get away with a strategy like this, pitting really early for track position and going to the end on the hard tyres, because those hard tyres, if at the end of the race they'll probably slide, and if you make a slight mistake, you're into the wall around Singapore. So if you're in the wall around Singapore, the race is basically doomed. So it's going to be very, very crucial for those hard runners to keep the tires in check, keep them in a good condition, and keep the car out of the wall. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to happen, and if people will actually tap the wall on those hard tires.
Saved obviously all the other people's races that came in at the end of lap 1 to replace their front wing, so the likes of Caesar and White. Chill got held up in the pit lane so massively that he's actually ended up behind Caesar and White, who had to replace their front wing at the end of the first lap. So once again Chill compromised in the pit stops, but that's the problem when you double stack in this game. If you're the second driver coming into the pit lane, you're going to get massively held in the pits, and that's what Chill was falling foul of. Pelly was another drive. Pelly has copied Yorno here, so the only person that's done the same thing as Yorno is Pelly, and Pelly is 16th, so I mean he's got nothing to lose in this case. You can obviously cruise up to the back of the safety car field, hopefully by the end of this lap, with some tyre temperature in them, and then try and get past the hard runners in front. But he's the only one that doesn't think that the hards can get to the end either, so it's going to be risky for Yorno and Pelly, but this has made this race incredibly interesting.
This is definitely very interesting for the race, because probably at the end of the race we'll have a charging Yorno trying to make up a lot of positions on fresh medium tires compared to very old hards. So this is going to be very interesting to see, and it's going to be crucial for Yorno to get a clean restart and probably overtake a few people on these hard tires and create a little bit of a gap if possible.
He really needs to get ahead of the people that have already pitted, like you say, like Peter Reduck and TDB. And if you think about it as well, Old School and JSD, 3rd and 4th now on the hard compound tyres. Their hard compound tyres are a little bit embedded in. Really going to be under any pressure you would expect from Peter behind, because there's not much of a tyre difference between the two. It looks like we're going to get another lap behind the safety car because Pelly hasn't quite caught the queue as of yet. But with the Old School and JSD only, actually as I say, that safety car's coming in right lanes. Never mind, we are going to get going for the start of this one then. It's almost like a really late safety car restart, but Pease heads the queue then after qualifying 6th on the mediums. His strategy a little bit compromised having that safety car early on, but let's see what he can do. He's waiting till the very last moment. Get going for the safety car restart. We're into turn 23. The line's just coming up and Pease now goes. So Pease up into the race lead. Luke in second place. And oh, there was contact in the background. Was that Yorno? Yorno's been put in the wall by TDB coming out of the final corner. And Yorno's strategy blown wide open, put in the wall by the Williams man. And he's now massively out of contention. He falls through the field with the masses of front wing damage. Edux now passes TDB as well in all that. Pease went so late at the safety car restart that no one was expecting it. And everyone got caught out the final corner, just like they did in Mugello in real life, and it's caused all heap of chaos. There's even more is going on in the background. I think Chill and Miami, I think, maybe come into a little bit of contact, and they're 3 wide down Raffles Boulevard, all trying to pass Yorno, nearly 4 wide into the corner. Chill's front wing damage. Yorno's trying his best to get out of the way. Oh, and there's even bigger contact, and Pelly and Harry Noir come into contact coming out of turn 7, and both in the wall coming out of the corner. It looks like we're going to get away with no safety car, amazingly, but both drivers out of the race. Yorno down to 14th, and that bold strategy from Yorno thrown out the window.
That is really disappointing for his championship battle, and this is very I think this has been the case because of the hard tires basically not getting up to temperature, as TDB gets a great exit out of the hairpin, tries to go around the outside of Eduk, but Eduk keeps the inside and holds the position. But yeah, what I was going to say is that these hard tires are really hard to warm up under a safety car, so I think a lot of people might have struggled with that, and I don't know, I didn't quite catch what happened with Yorno. I think someone ahead, I think Peter might have had wing damage going underneath the grandstand, but that's not the case. I think someone else picked up wing damage, and it is Luke. It's Luke in P2 on the medium tires, and oh my god, Peter goes extremely wide out of the final corner.
Struggling in the dirty air, and Luke's front wing damage is pretty heavy, so that's going to cost him a lot of time. But you could tell, like you said, that the hards were taking a while to warm up, because look at the gap that Pease and Luke have already pulled on lap 1. So, of the safety car restart, so they're already clearing off into the distance. Pease thinking that it's Belgium all over again, and Old School was in the wall coming out of turn 5 there. Again, really struggling is Old School. JSD, his safety car restart's been really, really poor, dropping from 4th all the way down to 7th in 1 lap. Behind the 3 are 3 people that have already pitted in this race. Peter Reduck and TDB, they're your net podium finishers at the moment, and that is completely different to the qualifying order that we had. That is just crazy to think that this is the top 3 we've got at the moment. Pease clearing off into the distance, and even though Luke has got front wing damage, Old School is barely closing in at this point.
Yeah, I think the medium tires are still in a good shape, but yeah, I'm surprised to see Luke's pace. He's losing a little bit of time to Total Peace, of course, because of that wing damage, but he's not losing heaps amount of time. So his pace seems to be quite good on those medium tires, even with wing damage. And I think TDB is going to try and overtake Edok. I think TDB is a lot faster than Edok, and he's going to try and make a move behind on the Ferrari. And I think after this lap, Edok will have DRS to defend against TDB.
Pease picks up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, so that's our first proper leading driver that's picked up a time penalty, so we've got to look out for that one. Old School now picks up a time penalty as well. I think going through turn 19 or maybe turn 20 he picked that one up. Pease then fastest up of the race at 38.9. I imagine that will probably be beaten by Yorno, who's come back out onto the track on another set of medium tyres, so he's hoping maybe for a late safety car to bring him back into contention in this one. And I mean, it's not out the door as of yet. It's been a crazy chaotic race so far. We're only 7 laps in, so there's still a long way to go. Pease then out in front by 3 seconds, and still Old School not quite in DRS range of Luke in front. Actually, Old School more under pressure from Peter behind, but Peter not able to make a move down Raffles Boulevard and up towards turn 7. He is just not close enough, and it's got too much ERS as TDB breezes past Edok in a straight line, coming down towards turn 7 as Edok now picks up a time penalty. TDB net second place, and he looks like, of the people that have pitted, he looks like the fastest person on the hard tyres at the moment.
Yeah, he's done a really good job, and I think he has warmed up his tyres quite well so far in this race, and he's looking extremely fast. And now he's going to try and make a move for the net race lead on Peter, and Peter is behind Old School right now, so he will have the DRS to defend. But we saw, of course, with Edok had the DRS to defend as well, but TDB easily passed him. And one thing to notice is that a lot of drivers are quite low on ERS quite early into the race, and regaining ERS around Singapore is extremely difficult.
It really is. You would expect it to be quite easy, but if you think about Singapore, there's not really a lot of heavy braking zones. It's all kind of medium speed, because you're never really up to full pace around this track. You barely get into 8th gear at all around here, so that is why it's so difficult to save up ERS here. And now Luke plays a very important role in this race. Obviously with that front wing damage, he is now starting to get reeled in by Old School. But he, staying ahead of Old School at the moment, he's not really under any pressure. So he's still doing a pretty decent job with that front wing damage. He could hold up this whole queue behind that are all starting to form. And this could massively help Pease, who continues to extend that lead now up to 4 seconds. He's just building that gap by over half a second a lap at this point, cruising off into the distance. And Luke now plays a really important role. And TDB is flying. Look at the gap he's already pulled on Edok. I don't know if it's TDB flying or Edok struggling. Either way, that Williams man is charging through the field.
I think it's TDB charging through the being extremely fast on those hard tires, because he is closing in on Peter, even though Peter has DRS to Old School ahead, and this could be very crucial now for these drivers to manage to overtake Luke in order to lose the least amount of time as possible. And yeah, there's a train beginning to form around here in Singapore, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out. And Edok is losing touch with TDB. I think Edok might be a case of both, to be honest. With Edok struggling and TDB flying, and it's going to be very interesting. Caesar picks up the time penalty, unfortunately, early into the race. But Total Peace is doing an amazing job out in front by extending the gap.
Yeah, he's doing a very, very solid job at the moment, up to 4.3 seconds now. Edok just running on board with him. You can see he's just not got a lot of confidence in that car. It seems to be very understeery, that Ferrari. Did it well in qualifying, but at the moment he's just not got a lot of pace. But it's not under pressure from JSD behind, and JSD is now starting to hold up J. Cole a little bit, who is now under pressure from B. Morgan, and they're both being reeled in by Miami and Caesar at this point in the race as well. So JSD is now starting to form his own queue in the Mercedes. Yorno and Chill, I think, both came into the pit lane for a second time now. Well, third time. Yeah, for a second time for Yorno, I think a third time maybe for Chill in this race, that he's come into the pit lane as Peter picks up a penalty now as well. But Yorno's race going from bad to worse to utterly horrible as Pease nearly puts it in the wall coming out of turn 3. You can tell he's pushing. He's really going for it, nearly in the wall. But again, nearly a second gain on that lap ahead of Luke. And Luke now starting to come under pressure from Old School. But you can already tell that Old School just on these hard tyres just doesn't have the confidence. Yeah,
it doesn't have the confidence or doesn't have the grip to overtake Luke ahead. And Yeah,
Oh, JSD. JSD, meanwhile, down the inside of Eduk at turn 7 from nowhere back. He breezes past. Eduk seems very slow in a straight line because JSD breezed past. It made it easy. Was behind Eduk through the kink of 6 and was well ahead before the braking zone of turn 7. So I don't know if Eduk is struggling with some straight line speed problems, but JSD, I thought TDB's overtake on Eduk was very easy. JSD's is very easy, and now J. Cole's up the inside of the Singapore Sling. So Eduk now, all of a sudden, from being in a net P2, is just starting to plummet through the field.
That's very unfortunate to see, and that's a great move from J. Cole up the inside of the Singapore Sling. It's not a move you see quite often. It's a very risky move, but they gave each other nice room and space, and J. Cole's now through, and that's crucial for him because now JSD ahead doesn't have the errors to defend, and he's been hounding the back of JSD for quite some time, and TDB is going down the inside, almost making the move on Peter, but just doesn't have the grip to get past him. But wow, TDB is flying on these hard tires, and I think there's... Oh,
Eduk spun! Oh, and he's completely lost his front wing in a virtual safety car for the debris, but Eduk from a really, really good position. We thought he was struggling, and it just goes to show he's come out into a spin before turn 18, coming out of turn 17. What a shame for the Ferrari man as Luke decides under the virtual safety car to come into the pit lane. That is a smart move from Luke. He knows that he's got to replace his front wing, so he may as well try and null the effects of the pit stop as much as possible. Come in behind the virtual safety car. P stays out, but this now frees up Old School and Peter, but we could tell Old School was struggling. So this now gives Peter a really, really good opportunity to maybe overtake the Renault man in front. But let's see if they all start to hold each other up a little bit. And now TDB has got an even clearer run at P's in front. So this is going to be really, really crucial to the rest of their races, how quickly they can make these overtakes stick. But at the moment, Peter's shown it. TDB hasn't shown it because he's passed quite a few people already. But Peter's shown, and Old School has shown, that it's really difficult to make the overtake stick when there's not really any tyre difference.
Yeah, exactly, because these hard tires, they're all equal tires, and it's, yeah, you have to have either insane amounts of confidence or quite a big delta in race pace. But yeah, I think it's really difficult to make the move, and Peter is really close to the back of Old School. I think also got a little bit of a bad safety car or virtual safety car restart, and he's looking very close to the back of Old School. But I'm surprised we didn't see P's pit, to be honest, because he essentially had a free pit stop on the virtual safety car. I don't know if he missed the pit lane before the safety car came out, but he this could have helped him a lot by going onto the hard tires right now and essentially getting a free pit stop. But now, yeah, that hasn't happened, and I think he's lost out quite a bit because Luke is 20 seconds behind the back of YHYY. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see when Toto Peace decides to pit, and he stays out for another lap.
He's continuing on, he's trying to extend as much as possible, maybe hoping for another virtual or a full safety car so he can put the hard compound tyres on. But like you say, when he comes into the pit lane, he's going to be in a lot of free air, so he won't struggle with dirty air or anything like that. But he's got a lot of ground to make up when he does come into the pit lane, so that's going to be one thing to look out for. He's not really extending the gap over Old School anymore either. It's kind of stagnant at about, well, between 6 and 6.2 seconds. So the pace is starting to level off, and maybe P's medium tyres starting to not be at the best life anymore, as Peter gets a great run this time coming out of turn 5. Old School holds the inside line for turn 6, which will become the outside for turn 7. Peter down the inside in the AlphaTauri. Old School gives him the room. They come to contact just a little bit. Old School runs a little bit wide. More contact coming out of the turn 7 into turn 8. Old School nearly squeezing Peter into the wall on the inside of the corner and the outside of the corner as well. And somehow Old School holds on to the players ahead of Peter. Peter tried the move. Great defense from Old School. It was very aggressive, but worth it in the end. He holds on to the place, and just that battle for 2 corners has cost them a second to Pease.
That is incredible, and I'm surprised we didn't see either one of them in the wall, because that was extremely close on both occasions between those 2 drivers. But they kept it out of the wall, and they're still doing, running in this race, and it's very, very close. And Jornos has the fastest lap, but he's 32 seconds behind the back of Chill ahead. And I think Jornos' race is only going to be saved by a late safety car or any safety car in general. So this is going to be, it's going to be very, it's a very disappointing race for him. And it's so close at the front.
It is really, really close as Peter nearly puts it in the wall through the grandstand area. It was a little bit sideways. He's really struggling in the dirty air of Old School. We can't quite get close enough to make the move stick. Pease, meanwhile, continues on another lap, so he's still going on those medium tyres. I'm amazed that his pace hasn't fallen off a cliff at this point. He's doing very well to hold on to these tyres, but I mean, the more laps he stays out on these mediums, and he's not losing pace to the drivers behind him. If anything, he's gained time on the guys behind as they start to battle. But Pease is just giving himself more opportunity to push on the hard tyres at the end of this race. So fair enough to him for doing it. Peter, is he going to get another run through turn 5? Yes, he is. Old School's really struggling in the first sector of this lap, but I think Peter's not quite as close this time around. He's not going to go for the move down into turn 7. Old School will hold on to it, and Miss Q extends all the way down to B. Morgan in 7th place. There's a little bit of a gap to Miami running in 8th place, just ahead of Caesar in 9th. They obviously pitted at the end of lap 1 to replace their front wings, did both Miami and Caesar in this race. But I mean, Miami and Caesar, they're in a very good, kind of a good position, because they're not quite at the back of this queue, but they're not really affected as much by the dirty air, which may be easier for them to control tyre temps and tyre life.
Yeah, especially that is a big benefit to both of them, and without or just being in clean air around this track has a massive difference on your tire wear, and all these guys from P2 till P7 are all affected by the dirty air, and it's going to be extremely difficult for these guys to make it to the end on these hard tires. It's going to be a challenge, but some drivers will make it, some probably won't, and it's going to be very close to the end of the race to see who's going to make it.
Yeah, let's see if Pease comes in at the end of the list lap. We're on to lap 12 in this race. No, he's still going. Wow. I'm amazed he hasn't come in. He's found a lot of life in these tyres. He's still going, and he's still not losing pace, so fair enough to him. We're nearly halfway into this race, and he still hasn't pitted off these medium tyres. I'm amazed he's taken them this long. Just an update as well on Luke's race. YHYY, meanwhile, in 10th, running on his own at the moment, kind of saving tyres as well. He's kind of, his pace between himself, Caesar and Miami, very similar. He just can't really close in. Luke in the last 2 laps has taken about a second and a half out of YHYY in front, and Edux directly behind him. So I mean, Luke coming out after that pit stop with that front wing change as well just goes to show that 9 lap fresher hard compound tyres, and he's got some really, really decent pace.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and it's going to be very interesting to see what Total Peace can do on those hard tyres when he decides to pit, and he's been going very long into this, and I think Old School is catching him, or the gap is staying the same for these last lap or so, and it's going to be very close. I think this might be the lap that Total Peace needs to pit, because he's losing a little bit of time to the middle sector to Old School, and yeah, I think this is the time to pit for Total Peace. I think he'll come out behind YHY, and it's got a big task for him to overtake a lot of these drivers.
I'd love to know what the fastest lap for Pease was on that last lap compared to Yorno's time. He did a 38.8 on that lap. I'll have to wait and see what Pease did. I'd love it if you could double check, maybe see what Pease lap time is. But Yorno, at the moment, he's on his own at the back of the field on 7 lap old medium tyres, but he is flying along, which is such a shame that his race came really to a premature end, as Pease is into the pit lane then. So the end of lap 13, Pease is into the pit, so let's see where he comes out. Like you say, he will be in that big gap between Luke and YHYY, no doubt about it, as I think Caesar and Miami both picked up a penalty at the same corner there. And now Old School takes over the lead of this race. And remember, both JSD and Old School running in this queue of cars still are yet to pit in this race, so they're going to have to come in as well, and that will free up Peter and TDB. But they've already done 10 laps on these tyres, meant that 11 for Miami and Caesar. So Pease has got much, much fresher tyres than everyone in front of him, so that he can easily take these to the end. And if we expect probably Old School to come into the pit lane probably around lap 18, 19, maybe lap 20 and put the medium tyres on to the end of the race, so you would expect that by the time we get to lap 23 that the hard tyre runners of Peter, TDB and J. Cole are going to massively struggle.
Yeah, definitely, and their tyres will get worse and worse and worse, and I think the gap, probably the delta between Total Peace tyres and Peter's tyres is insane. I think it's at least going to be 7/10 a lap, maybe, and that is a massive difference come to the end of the event. If a safety car comes out between this lap and lap 20, that's going to be very, very difficult for the old hard runners to maintain a position against Total Peace, I reckon.
Yeah, they're going to have to come into the pit lane, and if they do, they'll come out behind Pease, and it's fair to say that Pease could probably take these hard tyres to the end with decent pace, quite easily. So, I mean, we'll look out for his gap between him and YYY. YYY is a good buffer because he's running pretty much at the same pace as everyone in front of him. He's just not able to close in. He's no faster, but he's not really any slower. And Pease has already brought the gap down quite considerably in the first 2 sectors of this lap. When going to double check on the stream actually and just see what the gap was when Pease came out of the pit lane. The gap between Pease and YYY when he came out of the pit lane was 10.6 seconds. It's 9 seconds already. 1.6 seconds in 2 sectors. That's incredible pace.
Incredible. Yeah, his tires are extremely fresh, and he's going to gain a lot of time on the hard runners. And I mean, with a compromise strategy because of that safety car, of course, he might actually still be able to get into the top 5.
We'll have to wait and see how this one's going to pan out. Remember, he's currently running in 10th. 2 drivers in front of him are yet to make their stops, and they will definitely come out behind Pease. So that puts him in a net P8 at this point in the race, but you have to say that with the pace he's got, you would imagine he'd get much higher than that. By the end of the second sector, it's down to 7.7. He's flying along. I think he was 0.8 of a second faster than YYY in the first sector alone. So we'll have to wait and see what the gap is by the end of the second sector. So bear that in mind, 7.7 seconds it was at the end of the first sector. It's already 7.4, so he's absolutely flying. We'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, Old School still leads. We're on lap 15 of this race. We imagine that Old School's going to go for maybe at least another 5 laps in this race. So he's not coming in for any time soon. And still, Peter cannot find a way through. Old School's got decent pace, and obviously there's not a lot of tyre delta difference between the 2 of them, but it's just impossible for Peter to make the overtake stick.
Yeah, and it's really, yeah, as you said, it's really difficult to make the move stick on. And of course, basically the difference between both of the tyres is probably maybe 7%, 8%, which is not a lot. And especially on these hard tyres they're extremely consistent. So it's going to be very difficult for Peter to make the move. And yeah, I'm surprised because Peter has a lot of ERS to use to overtake Old School ahead, and I have not seen him use it except for that one attempt we saw earlier on.
Yeah, I haven't either. It's just... This is going to be interesting. I'm really excited for the end of this race because I haven't got a clue how this one's going to pan out. By the way, Pease 6.2 seconds. And YYY gained a second on Caesar on that lap. I don't know if Caesar made a mistake maybe because he's dropped a little bit off the back of Miami. But YYY is closing in on Caesar and Pease is closing in at such a rapid rate. I think it was 2.2 seconds faster than YYY on that last lap. And coming through the second sector split, it was 7.7 the last lap. It's 5.9. He's I get that obviously the hard tyres, the fresher hard tyres he's on, he will have a pace advantage, but 1.5 seconds a lap at least. Even if he was on the same set of tyres that everyone else in front of him was on, Pease, you've got to say, is the fastest person on the track at the moment.
That looks definitely like that's the case because
B Morgan, sorry to jump in. B Morgan's going to go down the inside of JSD here, so JSD starts to struggle as B Morgan runs really wide, nearly puts it in the Tech Pro barrier on the outside, but is just going to hold the line as JSD is trying to fight his way back down the inside as B Morgan again breaks too late. Runs out wide, but there's no room for JSD to make the move. Miami's trying to make a move through as well, but he's not close enough. JSD now starting to struggle on those older, harder compound tyres, and they're only 15 laps old, so JSD just going to show how difficult he is as he cuts the corner and picks up a time penalty, and Miami follows him into that corner cut as well. So only just over halfway through this race, and JSD really starting to struggle now.
Yeah, and that goes to show that probably within 2, 3 or 4 laps, everyone who's pitted out for the hard tires is going to struggle as well for pace, and you still have to go at least 14 more laps. So this is going to be extremely interesting how this is all going to pan out if they can make it to the end and not lose pace. But total Pease 4.5 now. Gap you said was 5.9. End of sector 1.
End of sector 1 last lap round it was 5.9. End of sector 1 this time round it's going to be about 4.3. So that's 1.6 seconds a lap.
I don't think there's a way these hard runs, even if they're in the DRS straight, I don't think they can hold Total Pease behind, because that is an extreme pace advantage, and I don't think, especially around a track like Singapore where grip is essential to make an overtake, I don't think they can spin behind once he catches up to him.
I can't see that happening either, because Caesar's closed back in on the back of Miami now after that battle between JSC and B Morgan. YHYY all of a sudden has picked up the pace and is starting to close in on the queue of cars in front. He's brought that gap down by 1.5 seconds in the last 2 laps to the queue in front of him, and Pease is closing at a rapid rate. It's been 3 laps since Pease pitted, and Pease was 10.6 seconds behind YHYY when he left the pits, and it's now 3.9. That is... obviously, we keep saying it, and we keep banging on about how fast Pease is at this point in the race, but it's just gobsmacking the pace that he's got at this point in the race. He could literally just back off for a little bit as, I just catch JSD having a massive snap of oversteer through turn 21. Just about kept out of the wall, and he gets another snap through turn 22, and that's going to run... It's going to allow Miami down the inside for turn 1. Can Miami capitalise on it? Get the move done? Yes, he can. So Miami now up into 6th place. JSD continues to struggle. The car snapping on him midway through a fast corner just goes to show that those hard tyres are reaching the end of his life, and Caesar will be the next driver to try and have a go at JSD. Old School not experiencing maybe the same issues. I mean, we say that. It's going to be difficult to tell if he's experiencing the same issues, because at the moment it seems like Peter might be experiencing the same issues as well, because he still can't find a way through.
Yeah, and Old School's doing a very good job from maintaining the pace ahead and not allowing Peter to get through. And he will, I think Old School might pit this lap or the next lap for the medium tires, and he'll fly on those tires just like Total Peace, but he'll come out
well back.
Probably behind Luke, or behind Edog, sorry. So that's going to be very interesting to see and monitor how that's going to happen.
Yeah, Luke and Eduk are battling on track at the moment for 11th on the road. There are only 3 tenths between them. But yeah, like you say, at this rate, Old School and especially JSD definitely are going to come out behind that queue of cars. There's a possibility that JSD could come out behind Chill. That's how far down he's going to drop, as Old School picks up another penalty to boot as well. So that's going to cost him. I don't think there's a single driver on the road at the moment that's clean on penalties, maybe apart from TDB. I haven't seen TDB pick up a penalty. I haven't seen Jacob pick up one either, so we'll have to wait and see how this race pans out. And yet again, at the moment, when everyone pits, B Morgan for the 3rd race in a row is on for a P4 finish. He'll be desperate for a podium. He hasn't had one in a while, and he'll be wanting one after 2 4th place finishes in a row and nearly being on the podium in all of them. And now on to lap 19, so this is the start of the pit window for Old School and JSD, and now Peter is starting to close in. Caesar and JSD into the pit lane, so Caesar couldn't take those tyres any further. Caesar pitted a lap before Peter, his teammate, did, and Caesar's recognised with 11 laps to go, well 12 laps to go, that he's not going to get to the end. So he's done basically exactly the same as, I can't remember who it was last time out that did this in Monza, where they recognised quite early on. I think it might have been Caesar actually last time.
I think it was TDB as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, TDB as well, yeah, like you say, he recognised early on he wasn't going to get to the end, so he switched to a 2-stop close enough to the end of the race that it didn't really affect his result too much. So, I mean, Caesar's done it this time round, and that just goes to show that another 12 laps, that's got to be impossible. It's a yellow flag in sector 1. That's Chill that spun the car coming out of turn 3 by the looks of things. He's going to keep the car going. I think he's just doing a 3-point turn. I think he might have a little bit of front wing damage, I'm not quite sure, but he gets away with it as Yorno's into the pit lane once again, and Caesar and JSD battle side by side on the road, as now TDB and Old School going past it. We completely missed it. Peter's past Old School, TDB is now going past Old School, and Old School, whoa, that is far too late. He's going to put TDB in the wall. That was really that was a silly move there from Old School. Far too deep on the inside, and they're 3 wide and they're still going at it. What on earth is happening here? Old School cuts the track and passes TDB. He's going to have to let TDB through. He's going to have to let J. Cole through as well. This has allowed B Morgan and Miami to close back up on these guys. All of a sudden, Pease is within DRS range of YHYY, and they're going to close on in this as well. Old School desperate to defend his places. Has he got a puncture? I don't know, because he's so slow all of a sudden. He's all over the road, and I think TDB's had to come into the pit lane. He has. Peter's in as well. They've all recognised they're not going to get to the end, so they've come in. This has gifted the race victory to Pease at this point.
This is very... I'm quite shocked at what happened, because we didn't catch what happened between Peter and Old School, but I think Old School's tires just completely shut off after being 19 laps on them. And yeah, wow, that's really surprising to see that all happening, and it was very close between those 3 drivers to pick up wing damage, and unfortunately TDB did pick up wing damage, and that's going to cost him a lot of places and time. And yeah, I'm not sure what the best strategy is right now, because I've seen a lot of people go on to the mediums, but a lot of people are still on the hard tires, expecting them or hoping they'll make it to the end. And I think the only one for sure that's going to make it to the end is the guys who've pitted and Total Peace.
And Luke as well. Luke, all of a sudden, even with a front wing change, has brought himself massively into play here. Currently in 6th place. Luke, at this point, as Edok goes into the wall in the background, he's damaged his front wing massively, so he's going to have to come into the pit lane. But Luke, despite a front wing change, the pace he's shown has been steady enough that at this point in the race, he could be on for a net 2nd place. I don't know how on earth this has played out like this, but this is blown up in our faces. And Old School, in that last lap, was so all over the place and so slow that Peter got jumped by Caesar and JSD. I don't know if Peter had front wing damage. I don't think he did by the looks of things. I didn't see any on his front wing, but they were so slow on that last lap that Caesar, that was running in a net P7, and JSD was running in a net P6, are now ahead of the net race leader. Or who was the net race leader?
They might have just undercut them on those fresh medium tires as well. So that is... that's goes to Edok. Edok is
spun again.
I believe.
Yeah, he spun again for the 2nd time in this race at nearly the same spot as well. More front wing damage, and Edok has spun the car, so it's going to have to come into the pit lane. But just look how much time people have lost in all of that. TDB down to 10th. I think maybe TDB did change his front wing, so maybe Peter did have a front wing change, because there's not really a net difference between the two of them. So maybe Peter got damaged in all of that with Old School as well. I think Old School so desperate to hold on to those tyres and hold on to the lead that it actually cost him and a lot of people around him their races. And Pease has now passed Miami all of a sudden. And Pease, from being well off the back, as we've got another yellow flag, that's Edok retiring in the pit lane. Pease, for being well off the back of the queue of cars, is now only a second and a half off the race lead.
Incredible race pace by Total Pease, and he picked the right strategy by going on the medium tires and not pitting too early, and he picks up a time penalty though. And I think J. Cole doesn't have a time penalty, and I'm not sure about B. Morgan as well, but if they can both work together and keep Total Pease behind, maybe, just maybe, they'll hold on from charging Mercedes behind.
Even so, I think even if Pease does have a couple penalties in this race, the pace that he's showing is so much faster than these guys in front, but I just don't see how they're going to hold on to that. Like, it's just crazy the pace that he's got in this race, and even ahead of Luke as well. Obviously Luke had a front wing change, but on the same, really kind of the same wear of tyres. Luke's tyres are about 4 laps older, but Luke is now over 20 seconds behind Pease, and look at the queue of cars he's got behind him, led by Caesar at this point as Peter picks up a time penalty, stuck behind JSD. They're all kind of stuck behind Luke here, and this is a battle for a possible podium later on in this race, because a lot of people in front might have to pit. As Peter goes for a move at turn 19, that's really risky, goes for the inside line. JSD just about gives him the room, and they get away with it, but Peter so desperate to make a move. He hasn't been able to overtake really anybody in this race, and yet again he's stuck in a queue, trying to get past JSD. You can tell that Peter's the faster of the runners in front. He's definitely the fastest of this queue, as I'd say, as TDB actually sets the fastest lap of the race on a 37.3. That's massively fast, as Peter's trying to get a move done. Meanwhile, race for the lead. B. Morgan's closed in on J. Cole, and Pease is all over the back of them as well. So Pease desperately trying to make a move on the Haas driver, is maybe going for the outside line at turn 9. That's really risky, trying to get a run at the Singapore Sling. That could really work for him, but he got caught out by B. Morgan being slow on the exit. Meanwhile, Caesar's past Luke, and now here comes Peter as well on JSD and Luke down into turn 7. That's really late on the brakes. That's going to put Luke wide. He's going to have to give the space up to Luke, and again TDB is the innocent party in that. JSD slams on the brakes to avoid the carnage in front, and that's cost TDB massive amount of his front wing. He's going to have to pit for a 3rd time in this race, and yet again TDB the innocent bystander in someone else's incident.
That is very disappointing, and of course he couldn't do anything about the Old School incident, and now he couldn't do anything about the JSD incident. It's just so disappointing for him, because he has shown an incredible pace. He just set the fastest lap as well, and yeah, I think he could have made a charge to at least P6 for this race, and yeah, it's just disappointing for him, and that just goes to show that anything can happen around Singapore. And yeah, it's just and in D3 of course, because you could be on top for one moment and be at the back in another, and it's just very disappointing for TDB, unfortunately.
Yeah, he'll be gutted by that. Looking for a possible podium, and another podium. That would have been 4 out of 5 races for him being on the podium, and it's just not gone his way today, unfortunately. Total Peace once again trying to move on B Morgan a little bit closer this time round. Nearly runs into the back of the Hassman. Coming through turn 6 is down the inside for turn 7. B Morgan just about gives him room. TDB forces his way down, not TDB, Pease forces his way down the inside. TDB's left the session in a rage, I think it seems, and I think that's fair enough for him. He wouldn't have been in the points, I don't think. Actually, would have been in the points, but only 11th. But Pease gets the move done on B Morgan then, down into turn 7. So, he is now free of him, and now it's J. Cole next in front, and J. Cole has really nothing in defence apart from, well, not really any ERS compared to Pease. So this should be an easier move for Pease this time around, and then it's all about how much can Pease gap J. Cole in the next laps, and can he gap him enough to get that penalty window?
Yeah, he needs at least 6 seconds, I believe, and then if he gets another one, he needs 9 seconds. So it's going to be very crucial for him to make this move as quickly as possible and try and gap J. Cole by at least 6 seconds.
Yeah, let's wait and see what he can do. He's all over the back of the Racing Point, and this is very measured from Pease. The old Pease from last season you would have expected would have gone for the move as quickly as possible and cost himself maybe a shot at a victory, but Pease this time round has just waited for the right moment, not gone for anything too risky, and then taken it when the moments come, and it's been very measured today, and he's now all over the back of J. Cole once again, coming through turn 22 and 23. Is he going to get the move done to turn 1? Is he close enough? I don't think he's quite going to be close enough to the back of J. Cole. Yet again, for the second race in a row, J. Cole's trying this strategy of staying out for as long as possible to try and make it to the end, but it might cost him once again. We've still got 7 laps to go in this race. That is a long distance, and they're already 20 laps old, those hard tyres, and here goes Pease for a run to turn 5, and I don't think that J. Cole has anything in defence here. Here comes Pease. It's going to be the inside line for turn 6, make the outside line for turn 7, but he's already past the Racing Point and into the race lead. So Pease back in the race lead after his pit stop. Now with 7 laps to go, he's got to make at least, well, I'd say a second a lap to try and pull away from J. Cole, but you can already tell J. Cole, B Morgan and Miami behind as well, all struggling for grip. I reckon for Pease, I think he could pull this off.
I think he can, because he just has that overspeed on those fresher tires, and I think he has 2 penalties and 1 warning. So if he doesn't get 2 warnings, I think he will likely get the victory in this race.
I mean, look at that already, 9/10 of a second in one sector. He's flying in the middle part of the lap. That's obviously helped by J. Cole being in the dirty air, which will cause him more understeer. But as that gets, it will obviously deplete, but he will fall out of DRS range, which I think he might have done, well, just there, but it might change coming through the final part of the lap. J. Cole seems to be struggling on those tyres, so does B Morgan. Miami, we haven't spoken really about Miami in this race. Obviously, he got damage on the first lap, qualified outside of the top 10, but all the carnage that's happened around him, really, that's all that carnage in that queue of cars, he somehow avoided all of the mess. He's ended up in P4 on the road, but at this point in the race for Miami, he's in an even worse position than the 2 drivers in front of him, isn't he?
Yeah, but yeah, definitely because of tyre wear, but he's still in a great position, and it's 11 seconds to the back. 11 seconds to the back. 11 seconds from Caesar to YYY, and then 2 seconds from him from YYY to Miami. So basically, it's 13 seconds to Caesar, and he's got 6 laps to catch up, 13 seconds and overtake. I don't think that's possible unless Miami has a lot of time penalties, and yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see if they can actually make it to the end of those slightly older tires.
I'll be very impressed if they can get to the end. We'll have to wait and see. Looking at Miami as well, he's got the most ERS out of anyone in the top 5 at this point as well. So he's obviously, you can tell he's driving within himself. Maybe it's just to try and save those tyres. Meanwhile, Pease, the gap up to 1.8 seconds already. That's nearly over a second a lap. As Peter's now going for a move on his teammate. I don't know if that was orchestrated, but Peter's now past Caesar. Peter's tyre's 1 lap fresher, and Caesar nearly slides coming out of the corner. And you can tell this is so frustrating for Peter, because in free air, Peter is easily one of the fastest in the field. He's so quick at this track, and he's shown it all race long, but just his race massively compromised by being stuck behind Old School for what was 15 laps.
Yeah, if he made that move early on into the race, I reckon he could have done the same as Total Peace by extending the gap and getting at least a buffer, because that buffer has helped Total Peace so much by to essentially not lose as much time to the cars behind. And now he's in the net race lead, 2.5 seconds or 2.4 seconds to the back of J. Cole. So it's going to be very close, maybe, but I think he'll have it at the end of the race.
Yeah, we've got 6 laps to go in this race, including this one, so we'll wait and see how this pans out, but Peace continues to extend. It's 2.7 coming out of turn 3. Have to keep an eye on that. Miami had a little bit of a wobble in the background. I think he got away with it, but you can tell his tyres are starting to go as well. YHYY massively being reeled in by Peter. Peter in 2 sectors gained 2.2 seconds on YHYY. So Peter, being freed from behind his teammate, is flying along on those medium tyres. He's got a lot of pace. TDB, you would have expected to be in the same position, but unfortunately caught out in an incident with Old School earlier on, and then with JSD in the latter part of this race as well. It's been an up and down race, and fair play as well to Yorno and Chill. We haven't mentioned them really a lot in this race after Yorno's contact at the safety car restart, and Chill after, I think, contact on the same lap as well. Their race is massively compromised, but they're still going, and at this point they're going to score points as well, so fair play to them to staying out on the track.
Yeah, definitely not giving up this race and securing at least a couple of points, and that's really good for those 2 drivers, and especially for Yorno, who's looking to basically manage the damage this race compared to J. Cole.
Yeah, definitely, and Chill's going around with a broken front wing as well, so I mean, fair play to him that he's going out for this long with a broken front wing. And Yorno, like you say, critical for his championship, because these points could mean everything by the end of the season. Yorno needs these points. Every point you can get in a championship battle is crucial, as Old School and Luke now go side by side, and Old School's going to drive clean around the outside of Luke on those fresh medium tyres at turn 14, and is going to get the move done. So Luke, from a possible podium spot, has just kind of fallen behind all the medium runners with all that chaos that happened with the likes of JSD and Caesar around him. So he's now fallen down to 10th, but still a good race from his point of view. Just again a little bit unlucky. Both Williams drivers today have been really unlucky. We're on lap 27, and all of a sudden look at the gap between J. Cole and Pease. It's 4.6 seconds, and J. Cole's now coming under pressure from B. Morgan. So I wonder whether it's B. Morgan that's got the best shot of finishing P2 in this race.
It's going to be very close between those 2 drivers. I think B. Morgan's been behind J. Cole almost the entire stint, so it's very close between those 2 drivers, and Total Peace is extending the gap massively over these 2 laps. So I think, bar anything happens, and if he ends up in the wall or picks up a time penalty or 15 million time penalties, I think Total Peace has got this one in the bag, and he's driven an incredible race so far.
Yeah, he really, really has. It's been really, really measured, and it would have been so easy for Peace to be freaked out by everyone coming into the pit lane at the end of the end of lap 2 at that safety car restart. But just like what Yorno did last time out, he stuck to his own strategy, stuck to his gut, and it is played beautifully into his hands. And it's not, and you can't say that Peace has been lucky in this race, because Peace has driven himself into this position. He's been the fastest person on the track, and he's played the best strategy card today. So fair play to him leading this race. We've got 4 laps to go when we cross the line, so not long left in this race. This race actually, for a race around Singapore, has actually flown by, in my opinion. This has been one of the quickest Singapore races in terms of in my head, really. It has been that I've ever commentated on. It's flown by. As Pease, though, picks up another penalty. So there's that crucial penalty that could cost him this race. That's now 9 seconds worth of penalties, we believe, for Pease. So he's now got to extend by another 3 seconds over the next 4 laps. But at the pace he's pulling, I still think that he could pull that off.
Yeah, I think he still definitely has the pace advantage over J. Cole on those fresh tyres, and I reckon he'll get 3 seconds, but it's really close.
Peter's into the pit lane. So Peter, from 6th place on the road, closing in on which way, he's broken his front wing. So Peter, from a really good opportunity at getting up to maybe back onto the podium, has broken his front wing, so he's into the pit lane yet again. So he now drops down into 9th place again. Great qualifying pace, great early race pace, but it's just fallen by the wayside for Peter today. Luke pitted as well. He's put the soft compound tyres on, so he's looking for maybe the fastest lap of the race to finish this race off. Peter comes out in 9th place in a lot of free air, but again, a race of what could have been for him. So it's now Caesar that leads the charge of the medium runners, with JSD directly behind him on the road. But they're, at this point, 6 seconds behind YHYY. They're not going to close on YHYY unless a puncture happens or their tyres completely fall off the cliff like we saw Old Schools do. But, I mean, fair enough to Miami and YHYY, B. Morgan and J. Cole. Obviously, we saw the pace drop off that Old School and JSD both had around lap 18-19 on their medium tyres. These guys are now onto their 25th lap on these hard compound tyres, and their pace, while it is a lot slower than P's and JSD and all that behind them, it's not drastic, and they don't go all over the road.
Yeah, and they're doing an incredible job, and there's 3 laps left to go, and I reckon they'll hopefully make it to the end on these old hard tyres, and it's going to be, of course, it's going to be very close because they pitted lap 2, I believe, or lap 3 from these hard tyres. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they can make it to the end. But pace they have right now, the hard tires are still incredibly consistent.
Yeah, they're doing a really, really good job. 3 laps to go in this race then. Pease is now up the gap to 7.8 seconds. So is really extending the gap now. So I think J. Cole has reached that point now where the tyres are really starting to go off the edge of the cliff. And it was at this point in the Monza race where J. Cole picked up that puncture early with 3 laps to go. That's when it happened. So we'll have to wait and see if the same thing happens this time round. But at this point in the race, it's a turn of fortune for J. Cole. In the last few rounds, it's been J. Cole in the early lead position ahead of Jorno, and then Jorno's come back later on in the race. Jorno's not had the opportunity to come back in this race, and it's been J. Cole that's been leading the way in the two leading the championship battles. So for J. Cole, it's worked out really well. Meanwhile, JSD and Caesar going side by side. There was a little bit of a yellow flag there, so I wonder if one of them maybe spun a little bit, or maybe there was a bit of contact. But now JSD is back ahead of Caesar, and Caesar's sliding all over the road. So maybe Caesar's medium tyres have already gone off, and they're only 9 laps old.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see because I think the medium tires last about over 13 laps maximum, and I think around 8 laps they really struggle for pace and they slide a lot. But that's what I know on heavy race fuel instead of low race fuel. So it's very interesting to see Caesar struggling a lot, and I think this might be the first time Caesar, or the second time Caesar's not going to finish second this race.
Yeah, and barring anything crazy happens, this will be only the second time in 8 point scoring finishes that Caesar's not been second, like you say. So 7th, still a decent enough result. He will outscore Old School only by a couple of points, but at this point Old School is actually closing in massively on him, so Caesar really struggling. And this goes to show that while there is a certain tyre life for each tyre, it also depends on how you manage the tyres, because Pease got those tyres 13, well, not even, I think it was 14 laps into this race. Pease took those medium tyres he was on, and he qualified on those medium tyres and did 2 full quali runs on them. So that's about 17 or 18 laps on those medium tyres that Pease did, and he barely lost any pace. So just obviously there is a window to where they will fall off a cliff, but it all depends on how you manage them, and Pease tyre management today has been stellar.
Yeah, it has been incredible, and I think during those safety cars, he didn't heat up the tires excessively, and I think he kept them in check, had a good restart, and yeah, he just kept it clean. He had Luke behind him, picking up wing damage and holding up a few drives, and Old School, of course, but still, he's managed this race perfectly, picked the right strategy, and now he's 10 seconds ahead of J. Cole, and it looks like he's going to win the race.
It does look like they 10 seconds. He's got that penalty window back to J. Cole. J. Cole coming under increasing pressure now from B. Morgan. They have dropped Miami quite considerably, so Miami, you can tell, really starting to struggle. YHYY has dropped as well, but that battle between Caesar and JSD might have just saved YHYY's race a little bit here. They were closing in, but the battle between them has really spread that kind of pack out, so he's a bit safe at the moment. We've got a lap to go in this race. We're nearly there. And Pease leads the race then coming on to the final lap. It has been such a brilliant drive from him, as in second place J. Cole rounds the final corner. B. Morgan directly behind him. Can B. Morgan get the move done on J. Cole? That's really the question for this final lap. There's not really any possibility that they're going to close in on Pease unless Pease picks up yet another penalty on this final lap. We'll have to wait and see, but it looks like B. Morgan has the pace at this point. We'll ride on board with him coming through Raffles Boulevard. Is he going to have the run to pull this off? Let's wait and see. Coming out of turn 5, I don't think it's quite going to be close enough. He has the ERS on overtake though. J. Cole in front doesn't have as much, doesn't have anything. B. Morgan's got a brilliant run through 6. He's going to go to the inside for turn 7 on the final lap. He's timed it. J. Cole gives him the room. There's a little bit of contact there, but J. Cole runs out wide on his own, and B. Morgan on the final lap, timed to perfection, saved the tyres, saved the ERS, and gets the move done. B. Morgan up into second place.
That is an incredible move from B. Morgan, and very crucial because now he's in P2, and that might be a big difference in the championship battle at the end of the race. And yeah, that's a great move from B. Morgan, getting that position on the final lap of the race. Can we see J. Cole maybe fight back here on this little straight? But yeah, he gets a poor exit, I think, and he's not close enough to mount the charge on B. Morgan. And yeah, that's a great job from B. Morgan getting that P2.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant stuff. Well managed from him. He managed the tyres better than J. Cole. J. Cole's still going to come away from a podium. He's going to massively close in on Jorno in the championship, but a win slipped away, really. Well, not really slipped away because it was never really in the palm of his hands, but it has been in P's palm for the whole race distance, and he spins and crashes, actually crossing the line. It's amazing he crossed the line just in time before it retired him from the session, but Pease is going to win the race. B. Morgan's going to come around the final two corners. Second place on the road. Pease should hold on to the race win on penalties, and does so. J. Cole crosses the line in third. Miami will cross the line in fourth place. Good result from him as well for YYY. Good save for his race. Fifth, he crosses the line, passes Miami on penalties. JSD will get sixth on the road. Caesar will be next in seventh ahead of Old School in eighth place. Peter will be next to cross the line. He's in ninth place in the AlphaTauri. And then we wait for Luke and Jorno to finish off the field. Again, Peter has broken his front wing late on in this race, but he's going to come around the final two corners. What a race it could have been for him. He showed great pace, as he has done all season long, but ninth is all he can muster. Luke will cross the line in 10th place, and I think with the fastest lap make that ninth as he crosses the line. And there is a car park on the pit straight at the moment of crashed AI cars. Jorno will be the last person to finish in 11th place. He kept going, got 2 points in this race, and luckily for his championship season, J. Cole did not win today, so that doesn't mean that the gap's going to close as much as it could have done. He crosses the line in 11th place, but once again, we've said it many times already this stream, but what a performance from Pease.
Yeah, it really was a stellar performance, and we've seen so far this season he could be a little bit inconsistent at some points during races, but today he's managed to be extremely consistent and managed the tires, and he gets the race win, and very deserving, I'd say so.
Yeah, very, very deserving of that race win. I think he's going to take my driver of the day as well, just for the strategy that he pulled and the pace he had in that one. Absolutely brilliant stuff. But hats off as well to B. Morgan and J. Cole for taking their hard tyres. 29 laps in that race. Those guys took those hard compound tyres. YYY and Miami took those tyres 30 laps into that race and came home in the top 5. So fair play. They proved me wrong. They got them to the end. Caesar, the likes of Caesar JSD didn't think they could get to the end, so they pitted again and they weren't able to capitalise on their fresh tyres. So they're stuck down in 6th and 7th, but it's Pease that wins from B. Morgan in 2nd place, J. Cole 3rd, YYY in 4th ahead of Miami in 5th, JSD 6th ahead of Caesar, Old School, Luke and Peter round off the top 10. Jorno until your final point scorers and your final finishers. TDB, Educk, Harry Nawag, Pelly, Stumpy and Bree all not able to finish today, and especially hard luck for TDB, I would say, in this one. Incredibly unlucky today, involved in a lot of incidents that were, well, other people's incidents that he got caught in the aftermath of. Educk just dropped pace on those hard tyres, really struggled for grip, and other people retiring very early on in the race. But all in all, chaotic, but a brilliant race.
It really was a brilliant race, and this is just an incredible race so far this season. Very crucial, because especially after the last race where we saw Jorno capitalize on the mistakes of J. Cole, we now see J. Cole capitalize on the mistakes of Jorno, and the championship battle tightens, and it's going to be extremely interesting to see what happens the next 5 races.
Yeah, we said that Monza could be a turning point in the championship, but I think we just ate our own words really there, because it's flipped on its head once again at Singapore. So that's going to be very, very interesting for the next round of the season this time next week. But congrats to Pease once again. His second race win of the second race win of the season. There we go. Let's get my words out again. Finish the stream how we started it off by not being able to get my words out. But I mean, for Pease this season, it's just such a shame though that this is not really in the championship fight, because if he was in the championship fight, you would say that he'd be the favourite to win, because of the 4 races he's finished this season, he's had 2 wins and 2 third-place finishes.
Yeah, that just shows that he has the raw speed and pace to get high up in the field and finish on podiums quite consistently. And it just, yeah, today we saw a brilliant Pease, and I think this is prime Pease. We saw today he's of course quite prone to making a few mistakes, but this race he's shown us all what he can do.
Yeah, and Singapore, a real driver's track, and we head to another real driver's track next week at Japan. So I would expect Pease maybe to be very fast there again. But that is where we're going to round off the stream today, guys. Tune in about 5 minutes' time for the start of the Division 2 and Division 5 streams as well. Dylan will be racing in Division 2, so go and cheer my fellow commentator on. But apart from that, tune in obviously to League of Europe on Tuesdays for Formula 2 and next week for round 14 of the season. But thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into the stream, for commenting, for racing as well. And for myself and Dylan, it is thank you very much, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.